Welcome back to LEGO Wars and Heat D of the series. Last time out we saw the pizza toppings fly as Ripperoni at last showed some of its international winning form while bolts briefly looked like threatening the planes before the inevitable happened. This week sees two machines from the very beginning of LEGO Wars be seeded, with the polka-dot barrel's Diotoir seeded 17th for the Series 2 champs Waddle seeded number 7. Let's see who else will be challenging them tonight.
First, from Bournemouth and seeded number 7, Waddle Meta.
Our Series 2 and 2023 All-Stars champs come into this series after back-to-back beating some third seed Zorby in the specials and could really do with a return to form tonight.
From Dublin and seeded number 18, Diotoir.
Diotoir's old bad luck woes are long gone at this point, as the veteran lifters will be determined for another heat-topping performance.
From Denver, Colorado, Wilbert.
In its third year of competition, Wilbert really should have made the bracket at this point, and some tough questions will be asked of the big wheeled boy if they fail again.
From Alton, Plunderbird L2.
Back from the depths of Series 2 returns Plunderbird L2, hoping to put in a better performance than last year's revived relic Cletus, but in an ever-improving field they'll be up against it.
From Armana in Egypt, Wakanassan.
LEGO Wars' other big wheeled pot look to have fixed their troublesome wheels in International 5, but they'll be a long shot to replicate their bracket-reaching performance of 2 seasons ago. Let's begin tonight's action with our former series champs Waddle taking on Plunderbird L2, so let's pass over to Sam and get stuck in.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Away we go then for Heat D of LEGO Wars Series 5. Plunderbird L2 returning to LEGO Wars after a 3-series absence, taking on former champions Waddle Meta. Of course, Waddle Meta last time around, eliminated in the round of 32. This time, they'll be hoping for better. Plunderbird L2 got a win over Hypnodisc, of course, in LEGO Wars Champions a few weeks ago, and damage sustained immediately by Plunderbird L2. That side panel ripped away. Those wheels now not as protected as they once were. Plunderbird L2's drive is actually very good. Loosely based off of Beetleweight competitor Decalodon, and therefore is a fan of Kevin Magnussen. Okay lads, whatever floats your boat. Plunderbird L2 at the moment though is the one pushing back on Waddle Meta. Waddle Meta hoping to get a little bit of momentum back going again. They've been somewhat out of sorts over the last couple of series. They've not been at their best. Certainly weren't in LEGO Wars Champions and in All-Stars either. Waddle Meta now trying to cause more damage to Plunderbird L2. Plunderbird so far proving a tricky opponent for Waddle Meta. Those forks at the front getting in underneath. Doing well so far to stay out of too much trouble. Off comes the other wheel protection, the wheel guard on the other side of the robot, so those wheels are now all completely exposed. Plunderbird L2 comes in back on the attack using that crushing arm to get a little grapple hold on the top of Waddle Meta like that. Now can they drag Waddle Meta towards the pit? They've already got one famous win over Hypnodisc. Can they get a second one here over another powerful spinner? And Waddle Meta would be a huge upset for Plunderbird to get the win, but Waddle is proving a tricky robot to kind of drag around the arena. But Plunderbird are doing a decent job here of staying in the fight. They are dragging Waddle Meta now. They've got those forks right underneath. They let them go now. Waddle Meta need to get some points on the board. Good impact there on the side of Plunderbird. Plunderbird pushes back and down comes that crushing arm once again. The angle of the disc on Waddle Meta does move, so they won't be too concerned about that, but they will be concerned that they could prise the disc off if they're not careful. Waddle Meta back up the speed again. Tactical fight between these two. A long fight between these two as well to open the heat. Waddle Meta trying to get round to the side of Plunderbird. Plunderbird's crushing arm comes down once again onto the spinning disc of Waddle Meta. Plunderbird doing pretty well in their return to LEGO Wars here. They'll be happy with this so far, I think. Waddle Meta probably will be hoping for better. The former champions, we are going to go down to time here, unless there is a dramatic change in the last few seconds. But despite Waddle D2's best efforts, Waddle Meta almost driving down the pit, but they are going to go to time. And it goes to our panel of experts, the judges, to see who wins our first fight of the night. Well, if they wanted a clean and smooth start to the series, Waddle Meta, this wasn't exactly that. Plunderbird L2 proving once again it is a difficult robot to beat. Controlling vast proportions of that fight. Yes, they took damage. Yes, they did take punishment from the Waddle Dee meta spinner, but Plunderbird were very, very well controlled, were able to drag and push Waddle Dee meta around, get some good grapples as well, and I think could do well here with the judges' scoring criteria.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Plunderbird L2. Those spin-up woes look to be giving Waddle Dee grief as Plunderbird starts their return campaign strongly. Next up, it's grudge match time from Series 3. Diotoir and Thwack fought back in Series 3's round of 32, where after having the advantage, the Egyptian machine fell to a malfunctioning pit. With the arena mostly behaving this year, let's see if Thwack can get some revenge.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1. Activate.
18th seeds Diotoir get their 5th LEGO Wars campaign off and underway. Thwackanaton, uncontrollable, ungamely. Absolutely love it in the arena, we all do. Thwackanaton, oh, great attack there though, causing damage to Diotoir's eye, ripping its eye off. Diotoir's armour, not its strongest asset, it has to be said. Thwackanaton, I don't think it really has many strong assets, to be honest with you. It is a wonderful and absolutely cartoonish robot in the arena, but it's certainly not what you'd call effective, but that's not the reason why we love it. It is chaos incarnate in the arena, and we love that for them. Diotoir, meanwhile, in recent series, has become a lot more effective and has become a lot more of a threat to lots of robots in the arena. We saw in the internationals, of course, they beat Pegasus, the 5th seeds for LEGO Wars this series. Of course, they struggled quite a lot last week with various robots. Diotoir proving once again they are a force to be reckoned with and trying to get in underneath and trying to flip Thwackanaton, an awkward design to flip. Well, that bucket scoop of Diotoir doesn't look too healthy. It's okay now. It comes back down again. Thwackanaton against the arena wall. Can they get away from there? Currently they can't. They're stuck. Are they pinned against the arena wall? I'm not sure. Diotoir hits the pit button. Thwackanaton need to get away from that arena wall and quickly because Diotoir are going to come around and get them. No, they get away, but Diotoir boxes them back in. Good control from Diotoir. What can Thwackanaton do here? They're stuck in the sky. Off comes the other eye of Diotoir. Good pushback from the polka-dotted machine. And Thwackanaton once again standing to attention. Can they get away from that arena wall? They've been so careful not to just drive down the pits. So far, probably the most controlled performance we've ever seen from Thwackanaton, it has to be said, but Thwackanaton now under pressure once again from Diotoir. Diotoir trying to lever them into the pit. Diotoir and Thwackanaton go weapon to weapon once again. This time though, Thwackanaton finds the pit. Diotoir finds victory. Well, in the rematch between these two very, very silly robots, it was Diotoir that came out on top in some style, the 18th seeds, performing well in their first appearance in the series. They took damage from Thwackanaton, admittedly, and Thwackanaton did look pretty aggressive out there, it has to be said, but Diotoir were always in control of the fight. They opened the pit, and as we know with Thwackanaton, when the pit's open, they usually find the bottom of it.
A very familiar result for Thwack as Diotoir gets them down the pit. Now it's Wilbert's time to start their campaign against the 7th seeds Waddle Dee.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1. Activate.
Well, after a little bit of an uninspiring start from Waddle Dee meta, they'll be hoping for better here against our last entrant for tonight, Wilbert, who has immediately lost his face, going face to face with Waddle Dee meta's own face, but Waddle Dee meta has taken damage there. The sword has been ripped off on one side, the wing has been broken on the other. Waddle Dee meta here, the 7th seeds, not having the greatest of starts to the heat, has to be said. They are now pushing Wilbert around though. They'll be thankful for that. Waddle Dee meta struggled in that first fight against Plunderbird L2. They couldn't get the win that they would have hoped to have got to kick things off this heat, and Wilbert drifting too close to the arena spikes there, getting caught out by that hazard in the arena. Waddle Dee meta, of course, former champions, maybe slipping a little bit down the totem pole of success in LEGO Wars at the moment. You have to be kind of so good at adapting your robot and improving your robot year on year, and so far has not been at the top of their game. Wilbert trying their best to cause another upset and put another dent in their championship challenge, this time around Waddle Dee meta. Of course, Series 2 LEGO Wars champions, and pit burn activated. We know Wilbert loves to go down the pit, but we also know that Wilbert at the moment though is struggling to get that weapon spun up. Look at it, it's dragging it on the floor, and Wilbert has lost its stabilizer at the front. That could be crucial for their control aspect in this fight. I mean, Wilbert doesn't have much control anyway, to be fair. And now Waddle Dee Meta has got all the time and impetus it needs to take take Wilbert out. Waddle Dee Meta wants to take Wilbert out. Wilbert face first into the floor. Waddle Dee Meta trying to get that weapon back up to speed once again. Coming into contact with Wilbert. Hasn't caused major damage to Wilbert, has to be said, but the damage that they have caused has been significant. They've removed one of the legs off the front. They removed the face, of course, of Wilbert. Wilbert can now completely upside down. But staying away from that pit, which is remarkable considering how often Wilbert just ends up going in there. Time is ticking away here. Waddle Dee Meta. So far, I would say, on top after that kind of bright start from Wilbert. Wilbert has now kind of slowed down in this fight, although Wilbert has got the weapon up to speed and a big impact there. Some damage has come off of something. I couldn't quite tell what it was. I think it's off the back of Wilbert, I think, but I'm not entirely sure. No, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. Maybe I'm just seeing things. Wilbert, trying to get the weapon up to speed again. They need to get that weapon up to speed again. Well, they're going to go down to time between Wilbert and Waddle Dee Meta. Wilbert is going to stay out of the pit somehow in this fight, and we're going to go to a judge's decision between these two horizontal spinners, and it's one for our panel of experts to decide who wins this fight. Well, it was quite tentative early on between these two. Waddle Dee Meta removing Wilbert's face, Wilbert removing the swords and the other arm of Waddle Dee Meta in return. But the crucial damage came a little bit later on from Waddle Dee Meta, ripping off one of those front stabilizers off of Wilbert. That there was the key moment of the fight. That left Wilbert unbalanced and unable to use its weapon to its full effect.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Waddle Dee Meta. Wilbert limped to the judges there as Waddle Dee goes joint top with Diotoir. Next up is a couple of yellow perils in the arena with Plunderbird and Thwackenaton.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Little bit of a kick clash between these two. Plunderbird L2 off to a winning start against Waddle Dee Meta. Thwackenaton needs some points on the board after a, well, inevitable pitting against Diotoir. Thwackenaton did look pretty good though. Did get some good shots off on the 18th seeds. Plunderbird L2 were very impressive in their fight against Waddle Dee, weren't they? They kind of just controlled the fight, didn't really take too much damage, used that claw well where they could. Thwackenaton using that swinging pendulum spinner as best they can do at the moment, but they are being pushed back, and that chassis looks compromised already, doesn't it, on Thwackenaton by that crushing claw of Plunderbird L2. Plunderbird have come back with a very serious robot this time around, looking a lot more robust and a lot more effective. Good ground game as well. There's lots to like about Plunderbird L2, and if form is anything to go by, they could be a force in this heat and maybe even in the bracket later on in the series. We'll have to wait and see if things continue to play out as we expect them to. Good grip there on Thwackenaton on the wheel there, and now Thwackenaton compromised a little bit, but not as much as Plunderbird. Look, they've got those front forks stuck under the robots. Thwackenaton has stopped, stilled. Back into the action once again, Thwackenaton. Can they spring a surprise here? Plunderbird have recovered well here. They've used their nous to get those forks out from underneath the robot. Thwackenaton is stopped here, and the pit button activated by Plunderbird!
6.
And Thwackenaton just drives down the pit in sympathy. Plunderbird L2 the winner. Plunderbird's rich vein of form continues as they kind of controlled and bossed the fight against Thwackenaton. Thwackenaton did get a good few hits off with their own weapon though, bringing it into contact with Plunderbird's claw on a number of occasions. Plunderbird there, of course, compromised the chassis of Thwackenaton and really did some damage there. Plunderbird, once again, corralling, harassing, pushing Thwackenaton back towards the pit, and even though they got their forks up under the robot, opened the pit up, and then subsequently Thwackenaton drove in.
This Plunderbird is proving to be the real deal tonight as they go 2 for 2. Now it's more rematch time tonight, this time from last year's International. Diotoir and Wilbert fought in the round of 16 last year, with the latter delivering their best performance in the arena to literally smash Diotoir's teeth in. After a shaky start tonight, they could really do with a repeat of that success.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Diotoir and Wilbert have indeed fought before. I wonder if the result will be different this time. Wilbert trying to get round to the sides of Diotoir. You may have noticed, by the way, at the start that there is a panel missing on Diotoir at the back. Not the one in the middle, kind of the one covering the wheel on, as you look at it now, the left-hand side. That panel is just lost. No idea where it went. Now you know. So they've just got a nice air gap in their armour for every single fight this series. Oh dear. Diotoir chasing and trying to corral Wilbert down. It's a very awkward beast to try and deal with, although they're used to dealing with awkward beasts. They beat Thwackernatten kind of easily in the first fight, but they're getting shredded here by Wilbert. That Wilbert weapon, when it gets up to speed, is very potent, and Diotoir here up against it. The 18th seeds looking to get bracket qualification once again, but good lift here by Diotoir, trying to lift Wilbert up off the floor. Doesn't quite get it, but look at Diotoir, has been shredded here by Wilbert. Wilbert trying to get off the mark for this heat thus far, yet to score any points. They will be hoping that they can do so here. What can they do against Diotoir? Oh, and more damage sustained by Diotoir, the 18 seeds. Litter strewn across the arena. And so far looking good for Will, but that bucket scoop is not really a bucket scoop anymore, is it, for Diotoir? Looking very lopsided, a little bit shredded. Diotoir going for the pit. They know the control issues of Wilbert are well known. They can try and push them down that pit if they're feeling confident, but so far, so good for Wilbert. We haven't heard that very often in their LEGO Wars career. And Wilbert here have been off to a decent start against Diotoir, but what can they do? Can they finish Diotoir off? Diotoir pushing Wilbert back onto the arena spikes. Diotoir escapes. That chassis is now very compromised on Diotoir. Wilbert back up to speed once again, and more damage sustained by Diotoir. But they're doing well to stay in the fight. The red and black polka-dot machine. Wilbert trying to get that weapon. Oh, back into play again. Splitting the chassis on the other side now of Diotoir. Diotoir is absolutely wrecked out there. There's no two panels kind of connected together that should have been like they were at the start, but Diotoir is still bravely progressing and pushing back Wilbert. They're hoping for that pit, I'm sure now, because if it goes to time, as things stand, I think Wilbert will have the decision. But Diotoir have got Wilbert exactly where they want them. They can push them back here. They're trying to, at least. Wilbert haven't got the pushing power, haven't got the staying power. Diotoir get the win against the run of play. Well, the pace was set early on by Wilbert in this fight as they started to just dismantle Diotoir from the get-go. Diotoir struggled to cope with the horizontal spinner's power in the arena and was shredded consistently throughout the fight. Diotoir, despite that though, kept moving forward, kept progressing in the arena. Wilbert, for all their damage, of course, don't have the greatest drive power in the world. Diotoir opened the pit, they knew this, and pushed Wilbert into that big black hole.
Revenge right at the death for the 17th seeds as they overtake Plunderbird for first place at the halfway stage. Meanwhile, Thwack really needs to emulate New York Slice's run from last week and pick up a KO against Waddledee in our next fight.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Waddledee meta not exactly convincing in this heat thus far, although Thwackernatten are rarely convincing in the arena, so you'd have to say that they're the favourites going into this fight. 7th seeds, of course, former champions. You'd think they'd be able to cope with the overhead Thwackbot Thwackernatten fairly easily, but so far, I have to say, Waddledee not been, as I said, very convincing. They've not been at their best. We know they're so good when they're at their best, and you'd have to think they're going to try and get a decent return to form here, taking on Thwackernatten. Thwackernatten trying to bring that weapon down on top of Waddledee meta, like that. Not to any great effect. Waddledee meta spinning that weapon. Now stopped as it comes into check with the wheels of Thwackernatten. Thwackernatten trying to recenter itself, trying to get a good bit of momentum to attack back on Waddledee meta. Kind of standing to attention. Oh, and a big swipe there of the Waddledee weapon and split the Thwackernatten wheel there, look. A little bit of damage on the arena floor. Not entirely convinced by these new wheel designs, you know, of Thwackernatten, and once again we've seen it split completely now. They are now stuck with one wheel compromised. They can't translate across the arena. Waddledee meta, they need to secure the points. They're going back in for another attack. They know they need the points, and they are not going in and kind of disrupting the apple cart, if you like. And Thwackanaton is being counted out. Waddle Dee Meta is going to take all 3 points in this fight. Thwackanaton, a beaten robot here.
6.
And Waddle Dee Meta take a well-earned and well-deserved 3 points in this match. Well, it wasn't exactly a classic, however, Waddle Dee Meta did exactly what they needed to do in this fight. Thwackanaton damaged early on there, the wheel compromised by Waddle Dee Meta's weapon. Once again, completely destroyed now. There goes the rest of the wheel, and at that point, Thwackanaton was a sitting duck, and Waddle Dee Meta secured all 3 points.
The wheels have fallen off Whack's wagon as they fall out of contention, while Wadley looks to be a lot more stable in second place. Now it's our 2 best performers tonight, Diotoir and Plunderbird, facing one another for the first time since the very first episode of LEGO Wars.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
So thus far, these two have been the form robots of the heat, Plunderbird and Diotoir. If you're familiar with the classic Robot Wars and you're saying that Plunderbird and Diotoir are the form robots of the heat, you have to wonder about the standard of the heat, to be honest with you. But in LEGO Wars, thus far, these two have been the ones who have been setting the standards and setting the pace, and Plunderbird at the moment, I'd have to say, is doing a brilliant job of keeping the 18 seed penned back. Plunderbird L2 trying their best to try and get another upset on the card, but Diotoir pushes those forks underneath the robot of Plunderbird, and now they're trying to get that scoop in underneath and try and lift them up and over. Maybe, can they do it? They're lifting Diotoir. Can they get Plunderbird all the way over? They can't quite manage it, but they've ripped off one of the wheel guards there of Plunderbird, but Plunderbird back down, and those forks, crucially, fall out from underneath the robot. They're back where they should be. Now they can get around to the back of Diotoir. A good push on Diotoir. Doesn't quite get the grapple hold that they would have wanted, but they push Diotoir back against the back wall of the arena. That crushing claw now as wide open as it possibly can be on Plunderbird, trying to get a big grapple hold of Diotoir, maybe try and get them punctured, maybe try and do some damage to the internals, maybe just pull more armor panels off. But at the moment, they'll be thinking about trying to get those forks out from underneath the robot once again, because that has been a recurring issue for Plunderbird since it's come back in this format. And Diotoir now has a free rein to get that scoop in underneath once again and try and turn Diotoir up and over. Can they do it? Can they get Plunderbird up on their back? They're trying, they're pushing, they can't quite. They've not quite got enough travel, I think, in the lifting arm to get it underneath, but they've managed to get it underneath the rest of the robot. They've pushed Diotoir. They've pushed Plunderbird back, but doesn't manage to get it over and out. Plunderbird escapes. Goes for the pit button. That's brave when they've got 2 of their forks stuck under the robot once again. Actually, no, it's 1 fork under the robot, the other 2 on top of the robot. It's very weird at the moment. They've got all their forks kind of splayed out in different directions. And Diotoir now trying to mount more pressure on Plunderbird. Over by the screws. Diotoir pushing Plunderbird back into that corner, trying to get them maybe onto the screws. We've seen the screws capable of knocking robots out so far this series. They could do so again. They could claim another victim. Diotoir now in the ascendancy. Plunderbird literally in the ascendancy as they're being lifted up by Diotoir. Can they get them pushed back and pegged back in that corner? Diotoir has lifted Plunderbird onto its rear end. Plunderbird cannot get down from there. They have no active self-rising mechanism. They are stuck in the corner by the screws, and they are being counted out. Diotoir with an expert bit of driving and placement. Plunderbird beaten, and Diotoir keeps their momentum going and puts up another 3 points tonight. It's a brilliant result for the red polka-dotted machine. This was 2 robots at the top of their game, delivering an excellent fight for everybody here. Plunderbird had its moments here, using the crushing arm to do really good things. Diotoir lifting Plunderbird up, almost getting it over, couldn't quite get it up and over that time. Plunderbird then responded and pushed back on Diotoir, using the crusher arm well. Diotoir once again showing great aggression and great technique, couldn't quite get Plunderbird over, but you could see what they were trying to do here, just didn't quite manage it. Third time lucky, Diotoir got Plunderbird on its back and over and out.
A fantastic fight from the duo as Diotoir had to work for it but scores a hat-trick of wins to make the bracket once more. Plunderbird will still have a chance to progress directly, but for now it's our 2 big-wheeled boys at the foot of the table in the arena, with Wilbert needing a win to keep in contention.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
The two big wheel boys in the arena together, Wilbert and Thwackanatter. Wilbert trying to come in and compromise those wheels immediately of Thwackanatter and try and test them because they know that is a weak spot of Thwackanatter. Destroy them. They've won the fight. Wilbert zipping around the arena quite nicely at the moment, and there goes part of that wheel of Thwackanatter. And we saw it cost them in the last fight against Waddle Dee Meta, but Wilbert has stopped in the centre of the arena. Wilbert, are you okay? I don't know if they are. Thwackanatter, they've lost a wheel on one side. They've got compromised, but they're still translating, whereas Wilbert are not. Look at that wheel, it's completely disintegrated on Thwackanatter, but Wilbert was immobilised first. They aren't moving, and I think they're the ones being counted out here. Thwackanatter, despite the damage and the obvious loss of mobility, kept going longer than Wilbert did, and Wilbert have been counted out. Thwackanatter, I think, are going to get all 3 points. I don't really have favourites, but if I did, Wilbert would be one of them, and this really does break my heart. Wilbert were looking superb, causing damage to Thwackanatter almost immediately, but then, after that one hit, they were sunk. Thwackanatter kept going, and picked up the rare knockout victory.
Wilbert's campaign stumbles once again as their drive dies out as a very broken Thwackanatter finishes their season with a win. With only pride on the line, let's see if Wilbert can at least match their fellow big wheeler and finish this series on a high against Plunderbird.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Well, Thwackanatter ended its night on a win. Can Wilbert do the same here? They have yet to win tonight, and they are basically fighting for their lives not to finish last in this heat. Plunderbird L2 tried their best to try and maybe win the heat if results go their way. Wilbert stuck in the middle of the arena once again. Plunderbird taking damage from the get-go, but Wilbert here. Are Wilbert okay? They're still suffering the issues, I think, from the last fight where they just stopped in the middle of the arena after damaging Thwackanatter, and despite the damage to Plunderbird L2, they are the ones that are still functioning and still moving around the arena. The forks have been ripped away, doesn't matter, Pit goes down, Wilbert goes with it, Plunderbird L2, an easy win in the end, and they take another 3 points on tonight's quest. Battery issues once again rearing their head for Wilbert, and despite the clear destructive capability and damage potential of that weapon, reliability is the order of the day. Plunderbird L2 securing another 3 points. Wilbert go home winless this series after ending up in the pit again.
An even faster breakdown for poor Wilbert ends their campaign with a whimper, leaving Plunderbird in that second position going into our final fight at the heat. Diotoir has a chance to repeat Bricker Brothers' perfect score from way back in Series 2, but they'll need to dispose of Waddle Dee that's slowly been gathering pace tonight, so let's see how they'll finish.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Our final fight of the night then. Waddle Dee Meta, the 7th seed, taking on Diotoir, the number 18 seeds. These two, of course, the two seeded robots of the heat. But the favourites going into this, once again, is the lower ranked robot, just like it has been every single week thus far, you have to say. Diotoir, currently on 9 points out of 9. Waddle Dee Meta, a knockout win would give them the heat victory. I will say that much, so they will be able to overtake Diotoir if they knock Diotoir out or pit them or anything like that. If get them out of the arena if they can really go for it, but I don't think that's going to happen. Diotoir, meanwhile, they're on course for a clean sweep. They're on 9 out of 9. If they win this fight by a knockout, they will be the first robot this series to get 12 points out of a possible 12, which would be an amazing achievement for Diotoir. And considering the way the heat's gone, the former champions here, this is a fight that they need to really put a good performance in, because Diotoir have been the robot that's been in form, and as I said, the former champions Waddle Dee Meta, you'd have to say they are going into this fight as the underdog, which is an amazing thing to say, because the series in which they won, Series 2, Diotoir was basically a joke entry at that stage, and since then they've kind of swapped trajectories really, haven't they? Diotoir have become this force in the arena. Waddle Dee Meta on the arena spikes being lifted up as well by Diotoir previously. They've kind of slipped down by the wayside, and maybe they're going to switch places at some point. Diotoir will be the ones that are the threatening robot in the arena, and Waddle Dee Meta here, they cause damage to Diotoir. You can see armour strewn across the arena, but not really affecting Diotoir, mechanically. They've destroyed the armour, yes, but Diotoir fully functional, still working, still pushing and pressing them back, and so far they have been the aggressors in this fight. Of course, they've gone for the pit button as well. That's aggressive driving as well by Diotoir. Statement of intent from them. against the former champions, and Waddle Dee Meta is now being pushed into the screws in the corner. Can Waddle Dee get away from Diotoir? Diotoir lifts and lowers its bucket scoop. Gets away now. Waddle Dee Meta stuck in that corner. Can they get away? The former champions, they're trying their best. Diotoir keeping them penned in. Good control by Diotoir, good aggression by Diotoir. Waddle Dee Meta gets away, they get that spinning disc back up to speed again. They need to bring it into play sooner rather than later. They do, but only to be rebuffed by the Diotoir bucket scoop, and Diotoir pushes back again. So far, I'd say probably Diotoir just about on top, but Waddle Dee Meta is not out of this fight yet. There's still time for them to turn it around. Diotoir with a good lift once again on Waddle Dee Meta. Can they tip them up and over? That'll be the end of the fight if they can do it. They've done it there. Good lift there by Diotoir. Waddle Dee Meta is turned over, but we are going to get a time, I think. Not a count-up because the timer is white. So Waddle Dee Meta is going to be saved by the bell here as we go to time.
6.
It's going to be a judge's decision, but surely that at the end is evidence enough that Diotoir is going to be the winner. Well, once again, it is the lower seed that looks like they're going to come out on top. Waddle Dee Meta did cause structural damage to Diotoir, but mechanically, as I said in the fight, they were fine. Drive was fine, lift was fine. Waddle Dee Meta, therefore, was always going to be in trouble. Diotoir, aggressive, manoeuvrable, pushing Waddle Dee Meta back into the corner, and eventually getting in underneath and turning the former champions upside down where they couldn't get back up. It's going to go to a judge's decision, but surely there is only one winner here.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Diotoir. Well, they didn't quite get that perfect score, but Diotoir take the win to complete the night on top. It's been a fun night of action in the arena as Diotoir again proved to be aging like a fine wine as they brushed aside their competition, while Plunderbird made a fantastic return to the arena, while Waddle Dee may not have progressed directly, but at least they've solved their spinner troubles and will be a favourite for the play-ins. That's all from us tonight, but join us next time when we'll have a special heat in store. For now though, I've been your host David and Smeg, and we'll see you in the next one.
For crying out loud. Test once, fine. Test twice, fine. Test 3 times.